and I just wanted to get started talking about um, this up here, the scenario tree. And I want to talk a little bit more about these buttons and icons up here. So most of these, all of these buttons here in this row, these are all going to be choosing what you can and cannot select on the map. And there's a couple of ways to do that. So in Company of Heroes 2, um, you would basically, you'd have different tools. You would click on, the spline tool, the splat tool, etc. This, you can kind of choose anything you want at once or nothing. So these are all the different kinds of assets you can have in your map, in your render window. So you have things like action markers. You have decals, which are a new sort of thing. Deform components. These are your parts of a spline, right? It's a little out of order. You got spline stuff over here, spline stuff over here. These are your entities. These are objects. Okay, so if we, click on lock entity section, we cannot select any entities. Okay, now if I deselect that, you'll see now we can select this. Deselect. We lock entity selection and we can't select it anymore. And as you can see, it also opened up here in the scenario tree where it is in our folder. So this is another fog thing, height field deform. There's a lot of little things. I don't exactly know what they do quite yet. I just haven't got that far. So there's like light selection. You can set yourself messages. Like this is a little message I wrote for myself. Just to help plan and just, help plan your map and make notes for yourself in the future. But the most important things are going to be shape deform. See, I'm still a little confused. What's the difference between lock shape deform selection and lock deform component selection? I'm not sure. But your important things here are going to be your deform component, your entity selection, your splat selection, and then your strip component. Remember, those are your textured splines. And then visual selection are for visual objects. Wall component is for your wall splines. And then this is your water markers. And you can also select and deselect things based on your scenario tree. So, for example, I'm selecting this entire folder. So I'm selecting everything that's in this folder. And it's a little jarring because this is all lighting up. But that's just the way deform splines work. Because as you can see, I have a lot of deform splines here. So those are in the distance. Like, see, there's these different paths I've made. And you can also put these into their own folders, or you can even put them into what's called groups. So this is a group. I put all of my splines and my kind of path and road splines into this group. And the way you make a group is just right click on the folder you want, left click add, and you can scroll down to group or type it in. And then all of a sudden you've got a new group. All right. And then navigating this scenario tree, you can kind of click and drag. You can bring this up here. Now I can't put it in here. I guess I can't. But then you'll see this then puts it inside this folder. So you can have kind of groups within groups. So groups kind of work like folders, but they're not as official. And there's some other things you can do with groups that I'll get into in a bit. But I'm going to drag this up here. Oh, I see. I dragged it because it was already in the... Oh, I duplicated it. We can actually just, undo there. Left click. Going to drag this down. And you see it moved slightly to the left. So now the group is no longer it's no longer a subgroup of desert paths and roads. And we can also go and kind of sort this layer things. We can also right click. We move to back, and it moves it all the way down. And then we can right click, move to front. Now we've got it all the way at the top. We can right click, left click, remove. And because we didn't have anything in the group, we're not changing anything here. Two important things: you can lock your selection, so you can't select what's in that folder on your map. You can also, like I have here, lock the selection of a group. And then you can also, the way to set things invisible in Company of Heroes 2, you could just left click kind of up here, and you would say, disable objects, splines, and splats. And the best way to do that, as far as I know, is to just do that through here. So your first left click is the lock, second left click is the invisible, and your third left click just resets it. And you can also do that with your entire scenario, and then you're just going to get a look at the terrain. That's scenario tree. That's all I'm thinking of right now. Atmosphere, I'm going to delve into this later. That's a whole can of worms I don't want to open right now. Anything here? Yeah, just a few things to note. I haven't toyed with audio region here. I don't know if you should mess with that. I don't know if messing with it does change things. Your color map, it's more of a draft tool, I think. All you're doing is literally painting colors on your map. It's not a terrain texture. I guess it's to help with planning. But you can see you just select color here. And I don't think, if you open properties, I don't think this really gives you, it doesn't really give you anything. The next important thing is your grass editor. So as you can see right now, I've got grasses I can select from. I think you have to add, you have to add grasses like they're tiles. So you right click, add, and then here you go to properties. It works just like the tile tool. With the tile tool we looked at yesterday, you have to, you right click, add. You go down here, you navigate over to the properties window, and then you choose your blueprint. And then you can choose from all of the grasses they've got here. I think they're almost entirely new. There might be one or two or a few holdovers from Company of Heroes 2. Some of them don't look very good. Like even the new ones, like the colors are just off. It could be the lighting in the atmosphere. I'm not really sure. Once again, you've got your height map here. We talked about this yesterday. Your Impass map. This is for painting Impass. So right now, even though I'm undoing the paint I just did, I didn't actually paint anything. So what you have to do is you have to select the pass type. So let's say I want to make something impassable to infantry and light vehicles. So you see how the color changed? Because I have these selected, I'm seeing everything that infantry and light vehicles are able to pass through. And if I just do a simple left click, and now it's a bit confusing. Even though it's green, infantry can't pass through here. It's just, the color difference is denoting objects that impact pass. And then the green is impasse that you've painted manually. And then the right mouse button by default is set to erase. So I can just go ahead and erase. And now all of a sudden this pathing is cleared up. And as you can see, I'm right clicking here and I can't modify this impasse because it's coming from the rock here that we've generated. Interactivity, we went over this yesterday. We talked about holding shift to paint a straight line, and you can move your mouse any which way, and you're painting a straight line. Mega tile, I wouldn't touch this. I think this is more of an AoE4 tool. This will give you a base tile to work with, but I think I had some performance issues in the past. I think this kind of interferes with your regular tile map. So I'm not sure. It might be efficient. You could set a base tile, in your blueprint, because you have all the normal Co3 tiles here. And then you could just use your tiles here to paint, to paint on. But I'm not sure if that has a performance impact. I haven't messed with it with this, 1.0 build, so I really can't say. Your metadata map, I have no idea what this does. Snow depth map, I don't know if we have snow depth implemented. We don't have snow in the game yet. I don't know if we will ever get it. I don't think there's like deep sand or anything like that. So I just haven't touched this. And your territory map, this is going to look really familiar if you've mapped in Co1 or Co2 before. You got your same kind of buttons here. This is super familiar. And it's kind of segmented like in Co2. You actually have to go into your gameplay folder and then add the actual objects to your map, right? But you can do, initialize Veroni. And these are already the auto-generated territory points. I haven't worked on territory, as you can see. So this is kind of just the default layout it's giving me. You can also have the option here to display water. And as you can see, the water here, I'll just zoom in for you guys. The water here is not, you can turn that off. Especially if you're on a weaker PC and you're zoomed out like this, you got all these assets everywhere and marker effects, just to save some, bandwidth. You don't have to display water. This is good for displaying unconnected territory. So if I were to say, cut off this territory here, it'll start to flash. At least it should. Okay. I swear this works. It worked before. Okay. Well, it's supposed to flash when you've got territory disconnected, because as you know, your territory points are supposed to be completely connected to the capture point. Add new territories. This is if you've already painted your map, but you're like, oh, I want to add in this territory sector. I want to change things up. You just put in a new territory point. So we can do that now. So we'll go to, and I'll show you how it works. We go to EBPS gameplay. Strategic points, and here we've got fuel, munitions, victory, and strategic. I'd ignore SP for now. I don't think these are what you want. So you've got high, low, medium, basically, and this is Co2. I don't know if these are Co2 values. It could be possible to one for one recreate your Co2 map with the old resource system. But basically, you want to get the most basic name, fuel point high. You don't want this rect 15 by 20. At least I don't think so. I don't know if there's a difference. But I've just used these plain ones without that the RECT 15 by 20. Because you can see the second entity is always that suffix down there. So let's say we wanted to add a high fuel point right here. And then you see this open this folder because this is our default parent. So you see we've got a lot of folders here. So we're just going to right click, cut, territory points, right click, paste in place. and our heal point comes back in exactly where we placed it. Now we're going to go back down to terrain. We're going to minimize the folders to save space. We're going to go back here and we're going to click on our territory map. We're going to say add new territories, and you can just barely see, but it added a little baby square right here under the territory point. We're going to click sample. We're going to click on the point, and then all of a sudden we're painting this territory. You can paint the capturable sectors. I haven't done this, but it's just like in Code 2 where it lets you kind of choose the shape and size. However, you don't have to paint the capturable areas, unlike in Code 2, because the default perfect circle is it's on by default. So if I was to just boot this up without painting this capturable zone, you'd be able to capture the point, which is a difference from Code 2. So again here, deselect all. We turned off the tool. We're no longer in here. We already looked at tiles yesterday, but I think these are some things we're going to get into later. The flow map and the water height map. We can get into those later. But water tiles, they work the same as... why do I have water not rendering? Is it because I have it turned off here? Yeah, interesting. I know there's a way to turn off rendering of certain things. I just can't remember right now off the top of my head. But for water, for example, they have tiles just like your regular territory. Just like your ground terrain. So we're going to right click on water tiles, left click add, and then like I said before, it works the same way with all of the painting assets. Left click properties, and there's a couple of different things here. You're basically choosing blueprints for your wood material, your foam material, and your flow material. And I haven't delved into this to see how each things are impacted. And it is a bit tricky, like everything in Co with the atmosphere, getting it to work. But we can get into this later, because that's... Before we segue into that, the one thing I wanted to show everyone... scratch that. So, the one thing, I just want to get it out here. Maybe when I edit this on YouTube, I'll put on some nice text to tell you guys. But in your competitive map, let's go ahead and we're not going to save this because we didn't really do anything. So we're going to go all the way back to my maps folder that I've created, and we're going to open... Oh yeah, I did some map. I just opened the default maps and I opened them here, put them in this folder. So let's look at Road to Tunis. Scenarios. This is where I'm getting mixed up. So I just did File Open. And when you're changing between maps, this is not what you want to do. Okay. You want to go File and Open Mod. Okay, because it's possible to have a mod folder open from Mod A and have a scenario from Mod B open at the same time in the same single Essence Editor window. As far as I know, you won't overwrite things. So like if you save your scenario in Mod B, but you actually have Mod A open, you're not going to overwrite the scenario file in Mod A. But it does get confusing when you have the names all mixed up. So we're going to go here, my map conversion folder, Road to Tunis, and we just open the .co3 mod file. We're going to say no to saving. It's asking us to prompt These are all the different files that the editor generates when you make groups and things like that, and other folders. We're going to say no, and it's going to open our new mod for us and the new scenario, the new map file. Just waiting. And here we go. Okay. So there are a few things I wanted to talk about that make a competitive map in Company of Heroes 3. So as you can see, I'm currently highlighting over a bunch of different things. I'm just going to turn off all the splines, just deselect everything. I am going to turn on entities, but I'm only going to select territory. So I'm going to kind of just lock everything out so I don't get mixed up. And when you have a folder locked, you can still kind of select items within it and modify them. So if you're trying to be extra safe, if you've got a lot of clutter, you can just lock a folder and then look for the, when you have the specific thing you're editing, you can just select that and not worry about it. So territory. Let's look at our territory. So I'm not going to do math in my head right now, but basically the approximate amount of resources you want to have are going to be 40 fuel and 80 munitions. So if we look at our fuel points here, right, we have exactly 40 fuel. We have 4 plus 10 fuel points on road to Tunis. And then our munitions points. Okay, let's see. Is that it? Yeah, so we've got 2 lows, which are 10, 2 mediums, which is 20, so that's 30. And then we have 2 plus 16, so that's 32, so that's 64 munitions. And then 2 more mediums is 84 munitions. So we're over kind of that margin by 4. But again, the max, the smallest fuel point or munitions point you can have is plus 5. So we're only over by 4. That's pretty good. Is there another? Oh yeah, the other thing I wanted to note, this is another YouTube overlay you're going to see, because this is really important. With the height bonus that Code 3 has, there's this little hill en route to Tunis, and if you have a unit standing here and it's shooting at a unit down here, you're going to get a little bit of a height bonus. It's just this very narrow area, and even though it doesn't look like that at all, just based on kind of the default, I'm going to try to approximate this, approximately the default camera position, you can sort of see a slope here, but when you're playing in the heat of the moment, you can't really see anything. What triggers the height bonus is a elevation change of 4 meters. So if you are 3.99 meters below your opponent from the terrain, then your opponent won't get a height bonus. But if you're 4.0 meters in elevation change, then your opponent will get the height bonus. So that kind of constrains the height changes you're allowed to make in your map. And that's another important consideration. This last point is about your starting positions. So I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger on the bottom. So your starting position you want to place is just called starting position. So you can actually go and modify the blueprint from here and get those same folders in the object browser. I prefer to do it down here, but this is easier. So we're in EBPS, we're in gameplay, starting position. The default starting position no HQ is the default object that the editor places when you do the checkbox to generate starting positions. And this is, for competitive map makers, this is what we're going to use to get around a workaround, as a workaround to get live games. Because this will open a player slot, but it won't give you an HQ. It'll let you choose your battle group. It'll actually let you call in units because you're gaining resources when the actual player is playing. So you have to be careful of that. But you can easily just disable the UI and spectate, where you can kind of, you can pick the same battle group as your player you're spectating, because remember, we can't switch perspectives. But this is what you're going to do to get that live observer mode in the game in these early days. Oh wow, I think Co3 is live 4 minutes early. I just got the finished download. I guess you saw that. Really quick before I go, I think I'm going to do a deep dive into this later. But this quick note, the leaderboards are live, leaderboards.companyofheroes.com. I think I'm allowed to say that. I hope I am. Anyway, so your big help for me in learning the Co3 tools is this Age of Empires crafted maps support page. And this kind of goes into the very basics of everything. It explains everything in painful detail with images, so it really helps. A lot of this stuff here isn't relevant. I've already gone through that. But let's say we want to learn how to place ground textures. Okay, so this is going to be how to place tiles. So even though I've already gone through this, it tells you everything you need to know about how to get to the tile editor. You go to the toolbar up there. You can also go to the scenario tree. I talked about redundancy yesterday in my stream, where you can access the same tools in different ways. This is here we're navigating in the scenario tree. So this will just walk you through everything you need to know. I've already kind of gone through this with you guys, so you can watch that on YouTube, or I guess for some kind of limited time, the Twitch VOD. But this also explains kind of what the tools do. And this is a good explanation of things that we're not really going to use, or I don't understand, or maybe if you're really advanced and you want to do something very specific, like this textured tip brush, you can load in your own texture. Maybe that's a different tool I'm thinking of. But one of the tools you can load in your own texture. And this is how to get the chunks grid, which I did miss mentioning yesterday, and show tile counts. But a lot of this stuff should be familiar from Co2 and Co1. They have an atmosphere guide that explains. It leaves a little something to be desired, because it doesn't tell you what some things do exactly, or it's just not very apparent when you're editing things, because maybe you're editing one thing and it makes a marginal difference, but the really big change you're going to see is another section of tools. But as you can see, this is a very long web page, lots of pictures, lots of information. Definitely consult this when you're making your map. I'm not sure if or when Relic is going to put this out for Company of Heroes 3. Hopefully it's up sooner rather than later, but I have no idea. I don't even know if they're going to do this. I assume so, because mapping is such an important part of the game. Arguably more so than in Age of Empires 4, because you can just, write a script and randomly generate your map. They talk about using the debug spheres, which are really cool. There's all sorts of cool stuff you can do to help gauge your lighting. But yeah, they really show off kind of the cool changes you can make. Yes, I just wanted to touch on that for a bit. They have a lot of good things about splines in here, so placing objects along splines, terrain deform, walls, textures, etc. You can do some cool camera stuff, but the important thing I want to touch on real quick is resizing your map. So you're going to do some, they kind of delve into things a bit here, but basically in Code 2, to resize your map, you're going to go to Scenarios, Resize, and it's going to bring up this, this window here, and you can resize your terrain and playable area. I wouldn't do this later on. This is definitely something to do earlier on when you're kind of planning your dimensions for your map, and you can also adjust terrain offset. So you're keeping the terrain and playable size here the same, but as you can see, even though it's small, I am moving the playable area slightly. So maybe on one side of the map you want to have this really cool thing you've made, but you don't really want it in the gameplay or interfering with the boundaries of the map. You can kind of move something off to the side. And just to demonstrate, we'll resize, and we'll see how this looks in just a second. Or a few seconds. Okay, come on. There we go. So we have doesn't look too out of place until you realize the trees here. So this is just resize the playable area, and because these objects aren't allowed to go past the boundary, they're kind of all clumped up here. You can actually show, I think you can show your playable area. Oh, it's here. Just like playable area. So this is the Co 1 and 2 style, where you have this sharp red line here showing your playable area, and then these kind of planning splines here. These are the interactivity layer edges. Another thing you can do, can we undo? We can't undo that, no problem. However, one thing we can do is, or is I just going scenarios, generators. Now, I wouldn't really mess with any of these. You can scale things. However, one thing you could do, you can't do the random scenario. I'm not sure. A lot of these you don't really want to touch, but you can slope your world. So imagine you, I don't know, you're imagining, this probably wouldn't be competitive, but you're imagining a map, and you're fighting on like midway up a mountain. You're fighting on a mountainside. So let's say you want to have like a 10 degree grade of slope. This is how steep it's going to be. So 10 is going to be a lot. We're definitely going to throw so many things off. But as you can see, we've created our hillside map. It looks totally different. But again, you could make your terrain size really big. You could paint a big mountain here in the distance. And you could, paint a bit of an ocean below. So you're like fighting on a seaside mountain slope. There's definitely some possibility for some really cool things. However, you do want to be aware of that height difference we talked about here. So that 4 meter difference is going to carry along. It's gonna carry along as you slope your terrain. So you can't really have a balanced map where you have one team starting at the top of the slope and one team at the bottom of the slope. It's just not going to be very fun and balanced. It might look really cool, but you might be able to get away with it, right, if you have and I can imagine two base sectors, up here at the top of the slope. And then because you're on equal footing, you're also kind of fighting down the slope for some of your terrain, but also fighting roughly equally. But again, that brings up challenges of like the retreat mechanic, and instead of fighting uphill, maybe you just retreat and then come back. Who knows? But there are some really cool things you can do with the terrain. And as I said before, this is your regular Road to Tunis map. But I know I did kind of mess things around with moving the map around, but you just all of a sudden automatically create this beautiful sloping hillside, and it could be really cool. I'm really excited to see what people put out. I'm going to stop streaming. I'm going to go play some Co 3 and enjoy the game with everyone else. Thanks for tuning into the short stream. I just wanted to touch up on a few things. Get the AoE 4 map editor or scenario editor, kind of, I guess, support pages out there, because there are a lot of things, and they'll tell you pretty much how to make your map, and that's how I've learned. I've been privileged enough to be able to ask staff at Relic some questions that I have specifically. It's been a great journey overall, and I'm really excited to see, to let everyone play the game now and bring this out to the public. Thanks again, everybody. Take care. Have a good one.